welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we've gathered your sources, a really fascinating mix of ancient philosophy, some big historical failures, and modern corporate drama, all to tackle one profound paradox.
Yeah, and it's a big one. It's about the spectacular fallibility of exceptionally brilliant people.
Exactly. How can genius so easily and so catastrophically veer into stupidity? That's our mission today.
It's really the essential human struggle, isn't it? I mean, every spiritual and philosophical tradition has wrestled with this. Ralph Waldo Emerson put it so well. He said, "We swim day by day on a river of delusions."
I love that quote.
It's perfect. And it suggests that the real goal of wisdom isn't just seeking some kind of enlightenment. It's about first just shaking off what the sources call the foolishness endemic to our species.
And that foolishness, it has a huge cost. The Vedic tradition calls it avidya, ignorance. And they say it's the main cause of all our suffering.
And the ancient Greeks had a word for it too, aletheia. It wasn't just being uneducated, It was the failure to learn what you really ought to know. So today we're examining this constant war with the fool within and outside of us.
And to explore that in a modern context, the sources really zero in on one person who embodies both the absolute heights of genius and, well, the deepest public failures, Elon Musk.
His early track record, it really speaks for itself. He wasn't just rich from selling Zip2 and PayPal.
No, he took that money and made this incredibly risky bet on rockets. He jumped into an industry that was it was a graveyard for private companies.
And what's crucial here, what the sources really emphasize, is that his brilliance wasn't this, innate thing. It was self-taught. It was fueled by an almost pathological focus.
I saw that Dr. Robert Zubrin, an aerospace engineer, said that when SpaceX started in 2001, Musk did not know anything about rockets, nothing.
Right, and he didn't just hire people to fill that gap. He read his way out of it. Friends said he was carrying around these obscure Soviet rocket manuals, devouring incredibly dense texts.
His college roommate literally called him encyclopedia.
Yeah. And that's the key. He had this different level of interest. He would just lock on to a subject. And this is like applying an exponential function to learning.
So by quizzing experts, he could absorb, 90% of their knowledge really fast?
That's his claim. And by 2007, Zubrin's tune had completely changed. He said Musk knew everything about rockets. He really knew everything in detail.
And this is where it gets really interesting for anyone trying to learn from this. That deep knowledge led to his key insight. First principle thinking.
Right. Instead of reasoning by analogy, which is just, copying what everyone else does, he forced his team to break everything down to its most basic, irreducible truths.
They asked these really simple but profound questions. Like, forget what a rocket costs now. What is it made of?
Exactly. What are the raw materials? They did this radical cost analysis and found something pretty stunning.
The material cost of the components was only 2% of the market price for a finished rocket.
2%.
It's an unbelievable margin.
It is. And that single insight led SpaceX to just build everything themselves. It totally changed the economics of spaceflight. And that's where he came up with this idiot index.
Which is the gap between the final price and the cost of the raw materials.
Yep. The bigger the gap, the more waste, inefficiency, or outright stupidity is baked into the system.
And that idea powers his whole algorithm for thinking.
Yeah.
Question everything, delete, simplify, move fast, and then automate.
An algorithm that led to, monumental success, but, and this is the big but, the sources all point to the tragic flaw that comes with that success.
A narcissism as profound as his brilliance, which creates what they call the storm within.
And we've all seen the pattern. This habit of being confidently wrong in public. There was the funding secured tweet.
A $40 million SEC fine for that one.
Right, and the constant missed deadlines for full self-driving, the overpromises.
But the real peak of this, according to the sources, was the acquisition of Twitter, now X.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't a calculated business move. It was impulsive. It was emotional. He overbid at $44 billion and waived his right to do due diligence.
Which is just insane for a deal that size.
Yeah.
He trusted his gut, and the result was devastating.
Financially, yeah. The company's value just plummeted. Some reports said it was worth less than $10 billion just months later. It's like he ran the entire length of the field just to score on his own goal.
And the sources suggest the cause is a decay in his intellectual discipline. He went from studying physics to, running the company based on Twitter polls.
Yeah, and getting his political takes from accounts like Counter too. The rational side, isolated by all that success, is clearly losing ground to the irrational.
So that $44 billion cell phone, it brings us back to the core question. What does this pattern mean for you? How do you protect yourself from veering from intelligent to, well, stupid?
You have to start with intellectual humility. The wisdom traditions are all about this. It's the Zen story of empty the cup.
The scholar who comes to the Zen master?
Yeah. Exactly. The master just keeps pouring tea until it overflows. He says, your mind's like this cup full of opinions. How can I show you anything unless you first empty your cup?
And that cup doesn't just need to be empty, right? It needs to be clean. Horace said, if this vessel is not clean, then whatever you pour in goes sour.
And our minds are so vulnerable to going sour. I mean, scientists have identified something like 200 different cognitive biases that we're all susceptible to.
We jump to conclusions, we double down on bad ideas just to avoid embarrassment.
And that fatal certainty is perfectly illustrated by the story of Louis Agassiz.
This was a brilliant Harvard biologist, a real leader in his field.
A giant, but in his old age, his mind it calcified. When Darwin published On the Origin of Species, Agassiz immediately denounced it, called it the sum of wrong-headedness.
He just rejected it outright. It wasn't a debate for him.
No. He stopped looking at evidence that contradicted what he already believed. Where he once used evidence to build his worldview, he started denying evidence to protect it.
He stopped being a scientist. And that rigidity led him down a really dark path.
A morally bankrupt one, yeah. He became an aggressive supporter of polygenism, this baseless racist theory that different races arose separately. He was trying to give scientific cover to the racial caste system.
So his own certainty became a kind of kryptonite.
It did. His peers eventually saw his later work as a delusion, a snare, and a humbug. It's a terrifying lesson. Brain power isn't a permanent vaccine against foolishness.
Okay, so you have to keep doing the work. And the first tool for that, the sources say, is disciplined, structured thinking.
Which brings us to writing to think right. We usually think of writing as just communicating ideas we already have.
Right.
But for someone like Thomas Merton, the monk, writing was a form of contemplation. His editor said Merton was figuring out what he thought with his fingers. The act of writing forces you to organize the chaos.
It forces clarity. I love the example of Eisenhower after Pearl Harbor. General Marshall asks for a plan, and Ike doesn't just brainstorm.
No, he takes hours and produces this tight, clear, 300-word briefing. Because he knew Marshall needed rigorous reasoning, not just glittering generality.
This is exactly why Amazon banned PowerPoint in their executive meetings.
Exactly. You have to write a 6-page narrative memo first. And meetings start with everybody sitting there quietly reading it.
Because a memo forces you to connect ideas logically. You can't hide a weak argument behind a flashy slide.
So writing gives you those internal checks. But you also need external ones. You have to assemble your board of directors.
People who will actually challenge you.
Yes. Successful leaders have always done this. Marcus Aurelius admired his predecessor for yielding to experts. Eisenhower, as president, actually institutionalized dissent with something called Project Solarium,
where he had 3 separate teams argue for completely different national security strategies.
Right. He forced them to build the strongest possible case for opposing views, so his final decision was actually informed, not just a reflection of his own bias.
And you contrast that with someone like the Emperor Nero. His early reign was stable, but only because he listened to his mentors.
Burrus and Seneca. But the second he got convinced of his own, specialness, he shut them out and everything just spiraled.
Which is the ultimate danger, right? Sycophancy. The sources point out that Musk's boards are famous for just rubber stamping his decisions.
And employees who challenge him, who commit the kiss of death of proving Elon wrong, they get pushed out. That environment creates a silo. It guarantees future foolishness.
And that silo leads directly to the 2 big information traps. Thinking you know everything, and consuming garbage.
The don't be a know-it-all trap is ancient. Epictetus said, it is impossible to learn that which you think you already know.
It reminds me of that story about Harry Belafonte in the library, demanding books by an author named Ibid.
Yes. His own confidence blinded him to the fact that it's just a footnote.
Or, a more modern example, Sam Bankman-Fried, the crypto founder. He famously said he'd never read a book because if you wrote a book, you fucked up, and it should have been a 6-paragraph blog post.
I mean, the sheer arrogance of that dismissal of deep, hard-won knowledge, it's the definition of intellectual arrogance, and it paved his road straight to federal prison.
And that arrogance feeds right into the second trap, a terrible information diet.
It does. The sources draw a direct line between Donald Trump and Elon Musk here, saying they both got hooked on mediums almost antithetical to the transmission of wisdom.
Trump hated The detailed presidential daily briefing,
Yep.
preferring cable news and basically articles that said nice things about him.
And Musk went down a similar path. He went from reading dense Soviet rocket manuals, slow primary source knowledge, to just obsessively refreshing Twitter. Fast, chaotic, affirmation-seeking noise.
As the quality of his information diet went down, his mental state seemed to degrade with it.
So the advice here is fundamental. Go to the source material. Favor things with staying power. Choose quality over quantity. And please, don't confuse gathering opinions with the actual work of doing.
Finally, the sources say real wisdom requires a kind of fierce intellectual independence.
Yeah, you have to fight against what René Girard called mimetic desire. We often don't know what we want, so we just copy what the crowd wants.
Wisdom is swimming upstream, like Richard Feynman, who treated tradition with respect but convention with ridicule.
The story of him asking for both lemon and cream in his tea.
It's a small thing, but it's about questioning the default settings. The point isn't to just blindly trust your gut, though. Precedent is often hard-won wisdom.
Right. Be like Churchill. Venerated tradition but ridiculed convention.
But all of this, the intense focus, the toxic information, the lack of checks and balances, it can lead to the ultimate danger. You just break your brain.
Look at John Stuart Mill, a child prodigy, read Plato at 7, just relentlessly pushed. And despite all his brilliance, he had a complete nervous breakdown at age 20.
All because he asked himself if achieving his intellectual goals would actually make him happy, and the answer was no.
It was total burnout. Much learning doth make thee mad, as the saying goes. His recovery wasn't about more thinking, it was about finding balance, art, music, love.
Recognizing the limits of pure logic.
Exactly. And Musk's demon mode, while it's driven success, it involves an unhealthy mix of stress, overwork, and drugs. He's admitted to using Ambien and ketamine.
That impairs judgment. Like when he was manically unplugging Twitter servers over Christmas and breaking the service because he wouldn't listen to the engineers.
That's the cost of running a machine until it overheats.
So the core message for you, for the listener, is that you are not a machine. You're an ecosystem. And if you let your mind exist in a state of constant storm, you're inviting chaos.
We all have this duality, a rational side that builds and an irrational side that destroys. And the fight for wisdom isn't something you do once. It's daily work, battling radicalization, rigidity, rage.
So the sources leave us with that essential question: who will win in you? And figuring that out is the whole point of this deep dive.
And here's the final thought for you to take away. The sources really stress that the most dangerous thing that can happen to the smartest person in the world is when they start to believe they are the smartest person in the world. So think about this. What is the one area of your life, personal or professional, where you are most convinced of your own certainty and therefore most likely to be a fool?